You know what nobody tells you? Most relationships don't die from a lack of love. They die from unspoken words, unmet needs, and unnoticed patterns. It's not always the big betrayals that break us. It's the small, silent mistakes we make every day, the ones we think are harmless. We think we're fine because no one's yelling, no one's walking out. But in the quiet, something sacred is eroding. And for many, that erosion begins in the most intimate part of the relationship. Sex. We don't talk about sex because we think love will fix it. Somewhere along the way, many of us were taught, explicitly or silently, that if two people really love each other, everything else will just fall into place. That love alone should be enough to carry a relationship through every discomfort, every unmet need, and every unspoken truth. But love, without communication, is like trying to sail a boat without wind. It can look beautiful on the surface, but it's going nowhere. Sex is often the first place where silence becomes dangerous. It's one of the most intimate, vulnerable expressions two people can share. And yet, it's often the thing we're most afraid to talk about. Not because we don't care, but because we care so much. There's fear around being judged, around not being enough, around asking for something, and being met with rejection or confusion. So we stay quiet, we assume, we hope, and then we wonder why something that once felt electric now feels distant, routine, or even burdensome. When we confuse love with telepathy, we create tension. Just because someone loves you doesn't mean they know what you need. Just because you love someone doesn't mean you automatically understand how to meet their deepest desires, especially when they change over time. Intimacy is not a fixed state, it's a fluid, ever-evolving dialogue between two people who are willing to meet each other honestly. And sex, being one of the most tender parts of that dialogue, requires more than just affection. It demands vulnerability, curiosity, and clarity. The truth is, love can exist in a relationship where sex is struggling, but love alone won't solve the struggle. It's not enough to just hope that things will improve on their own. Hope is not a strategy. Sex is not just about physical connection, it's a mirror for the emotional and psychological health of a relationship. If we're disconnected outside the bedroom, that disconnection will follow us inside. If we're walking on eggshells emotionally, we won't feel safe enough to open up sexually. And when we don't feel safe, we stop showing up fully. We hold back, we shut down, and we pretend. It's heartbreaking how many couples stay silent about something that's hurting them. They avoid the conversation for months, even years, because it feels awkward, or worse, shameful. And in that silence, resentment grows. The kind of resentment that doesn't always shout. It simmers. It shows up in the small distances, the passive rejections, the excuses, the hesitations, the way you roll over and turn your back even when your heart aches to be touched. We need to stop waiting for love to do the talking for us. Love gives us the reason to have the conversation, not the excuse to avoid it. Talking about sex doesn't mean something is wrong. It means you care enough to make it right. It means you see your partner not just as someone to love, but someone to understand. And it means you're willing to be seen, not just the polished version of you, but the raw, honest human one too. If you really want to protect love, you have to talk about the things that make you uncomfortable. Because real intimacy begins where the performance ends. And the more you avoid talking about sex, the more disconnected you become from the very thing that once made your relationship feel alive. So no, love won't fix it. But love will give you the courage to speak, and that's where healing starts. People assume desire is automatic. It's not. It's cultivated. We grow up believing that if there's chemistry, if there's love, if two people are meant to be, then desire will just show up every time effortlessly. And for a while, especially at the beginning, it might feel that way, the rush, the novelty, the adrenaline of discovering someone new. But desire isn't built to be sustained by accident. Over time, it has to be nurtured. It needs to be fed, not expected. What often confuses people is the difference between lust and long-term desire. Lust is automatic, it's fast, instinctual, driven by novelty. But long-term desire, that deep magnetic pull towards someone you already know, that isn't automatic. It's a flame that doesn't keep itself lit. And what fuels that flame isn't just attraction or sex itself. It's presence. It's mystery. It's the intentional act of choosing your partner again and again, even after the newness has worn off. In long-term relationships, many people begin to feel that something is wrong with them when the desire fades. They start asking, Why don't I feel that spark anymore? Or why do we not want each other like we used to? And often, instead of asking better questions, they settle for silence. They retreat into routine, assuming this is just what happens. But what really happened was not that love died or the attraction disappeared. It's that no one kept the desire alive. Desire needs space. It needs freedom, tension, imagination. And yet, in our culture of hyperconnection, couples often lose the individuality that once made them desirable to each other. We spend so much time together, so much time trying to merge lives, that we forget the power of distance, of seeing each other with fresh eyes, of allowing curiosity to come back in. Familiarity might breed comfort, but too much of it can dull attraction. We stop being curious. We stop playing. We stop risking. And without risk, there's no edge. And without edge, desire starts to feel like a faded memory. Another mistake people make is relying only on physical attraction to keep desire alive. But physicality alone isn't sustainable. You could be with the most conventionally attractive person in the world and still feel completely disconnected if they aren't emotionally present, if they aren't curious, if they aren't engaged in the dance of seduction that continues long after the clothes come off. True desire lives in the emotional and psychological space between two people. It's about how seen you feel, how wanted not just as a body but as a whole human. To cultivate desire means to pay attention. It means to notice the small things, to flirt without needing a payoff, to touch with intention, to speak the kind of words that remind your partner, I see you, I want you. Still, it means creating moments of surprise, stepping out of routine, and letting your partner experience you as someone dynamic, not just predictable. It means learning their evolving desires, not just assuming what worked last year still works now. Desire also needs safety. People think danger is sexy, but in truth, sustainable desire only exists where emotional safety is present. If someone feels judged unseen, dismissed, or emotionally starved, their body may respond by shutting down. So cultivating desire isn't just about setting the mood, it's about creating a relationship where both people feel alive, connected, and free to express who they are. We kill desire when we stop trying, when we assume it'll take care of itself, when we mistake maintenance for effort. So if you miss the passion, don't just wish it back. Water it, feed it, invite it. Because desire doesn't die overnight, it just grows quiet when no one is listening. And the good news is you can always bring it back if you choose to. When you prioritize performance over presence, you lose both. Somewhere along the way, we were taught to believe that sex is something we're supposed to be good at, that it's a skill, a performance, a metric of worth. We internalize the idea that satisfaction is about technique, timing, endurance, or doing it right. But the truth is, when the goal becomes doing it well instead of being fully there, we start missing the entire point of intimacy. Because you can't truly connect while performing. You can't truly feel while trying to impress. And you certainly can't be present if your mind is caught in a loop of self-judgment, comparison, or fear of failure. Presence is what makes intimacy real. It's not what you do, it's how you show up. It's the way you listen to your partner's body, the way you respond, the way you let go of control and actually allow yourself to feel. And ironically, when you're fully present, when you stop trying to perform, that's when everything becomes better. Because you're no longer chasing validation, you're building connection. You're no longer trying to prove something, you're allowing something to unfold. Performance turns intimacy into pressure. It makes it about outcomes. Did they finish? Was it good enough? Did I do everything right? And once your mind goes there, you're no longer in the moment. You're outside of yourself, observing, measuring, and judging. That internal critic is loud, and it drowns out every whisper of connection, every moment of softness, every opportunity to be deeply seen and felt. Sex becomes a show, not a shared experience. And when it becomes a show, both people stop showing up authentically. We also perform because we're afraid of not being enough, afraid of being rejected, afraid of being truly vulnerable. So we try to get everything right, hoping that technique will cover up insecurity. But you can't mask disconnection with skill. You can't fake being emotionally open. People feel it, even if they can't name it. They know when you're not really with them, when you're going through the motions, when you're more focused on doing something impressive than being in sync. Presence, on the other hand, invites honesty. It's slow. It's tuned in. It lets silence breathe. It pays attention not just to touch and response, but to emotion and energy. Presence says, I'm not here to win. I'm here to experience something real with you. That shift changes everything. It softens the body. It opens the heart. It creates safety, which is the bedrock of true intimacy. There's also this idea that performance is sexy because it's confident, but real confidence is presence. Real confidence says, I don't need to pretend. I'm here. I want to explore you. I want to be explored. I don't need to prove. I want to feel. That kind of confidence is magnetic. It's grounded. It allows room for spontaneity, for laughter, for messiness, for all the very human things that make intimacy rich and fulfilling. When people feel that they're being performed for instead of being connected with, they eventually disconnect. And ironically, the harder someone tries to impress, the more distant they feel. Because no one wants to be a spectator in their own intimate life. They want to be met. They want to be known. They want to feel something real. So stop trying to be perfect. Stop chasing flawless. Stop treating sex like a performance review. Show up. Let go. Be present. Because when you stop performing, you finally give yourself permission to enjoy. And when you enjoy everything, touch, breath, closeness becomes enough. More than enough. That's where real intimacy lives. Emotional disconnection always leads to physical disinterest. It may not happen immediately, and it may not be obvious at first, but over time, when two people drift apart emotionally, their physical connection inevitably suffers. Sex, at its best, is not just about bodies touching. It's about hearts aligning. It's about trust, safety, and emotional closeness. When those things erode, so does the desire to be close in a physical way. You might go through the motions, you might still touch, but something feels missing. That spark, that pull, that sense of intimacy. It fades quietly when the emotional bond is no longer strong. In the beginning of a relationship, everything feels electric. The emotional and physical are tightly woven. You're curious about each other. You're open. You're present. That emotional closeness fuels the physical desire. You're not just turned on by what your partner looks like. You're drawn to who they are, how they make you feel, how safe and seen you feel in their presence. But as time passes, emotional distance can start to form. Maybe you stop sharing the deeper parts of your day. Maybe resentment starts to grow unspoken. Maybe you feel misunderstood or unseen or taken for granted. And slowly, almost without realizing it, you begin to turn away from each other. That turning away shows up everywhere. It's in the silence at dinner, in the scroll on the phone instead of eye contact, in the short answers, the lack of curiosity, the absence of appreciation. And it's no surprise that it eventually finds its way into the bedroom. Because sex is not separate from the rest of the relationship, it reflects it. You can't starve the emotional bond and expect the physical one to thrive. Intimacy doesn't live in isolation. It grows in the soil of connection. Some people try to force the physical even when the emotional feels off. They push for sex, hoping it will fix the distance, hoping that maybe if they connect physically, the emotional will follow. But it rarely works that way. When someone feels emotionally disconnected, sex can feel more like a duty than a desire. It becomes something they do, not something they want. And over time, that breeds even more disconnection. Because nothing feels lonelier than being touched by someone you feel distant from. Emotional safety is the foundation of desire. When you feel emotionally close to someone, when you feel accepted, loved, and understood, you naturally want to be near them. Your body relaxes. Your heart opens. You feel free to express yourself, to explore, to be vulnerable. But when emotional connection is lost, that freedom disappears. You start to second-guess yourself. You close off, and desire, which needs openness to survive, begins to shut down. We're often told that long-term relationships just lose passion, that it's normal. But what's more accurate is that long-term relationships lose connection, and that disconnect is what kills passion. You can reignite desire, but only if you're willing to rebuild what makes desire possible, emotional intimacy. That means honest conversations. That means repairing broken trust. That means slowing down and turning toward each other again, not just physically, but emotionally. So if you're wondering why the physical spark has faded, don't just look at what's happening in the bedroom. Look at what's happening between you outside of it. Are you showing up for each other? Are you being real with each other? Are you still curious about each other? If not, that's where the healing starts. Because when two people feel emotionally close, the physical connection often returns, not forced, not pressured, but naturally. Because emotional intimacy is what gives physical intimacy its meaning. And without that, the body may show up, but the soul won't. Assuming your partner should just know is a quiet killer. It sounds harmless, even romantic. This belief that someone who truly loves you will understand you without words, that they'll intuitively pick up on your needs, your desires, your pain, your boundaries. But in reality, this assumption is not only unrealistic, it's deeply damaging. Because when you expect someone to read your mind, you're not inviting connection, you're setting them up to fail. And when they inevitably do, you don't just feel disappointed, you feel unseen. But the truth is, you never gave them the chance to see you clearly in the first place. At the heart of this mindset is a longing to feel known. We all want that. To be understood without explanation. To feel that someone gets us on a soul, deep level. That kind of connection is beautiful when it happens. But even in the strongest relationships, even with the most attentive partners, nobody is a mind reader. Nobody can carry the emotional weight of another person's needs without communication. And when we start measuring love by how well someone guesses our unspoken thoughts, we create a game with no winner. Because we're not asking for partnership, we're asking for perfection. This quiet expectation creates resentment. You hold on to something that didn't happen, something they didn't say, something they didn't do. And instead of bringing it forward, you store it. You start telling yourself stories. If they really loved me, they would have known. If they cared, they would have noticed. And with every unmet expectation, a wall builds. It's not made of anger or dramatic fights. It's built from silence, from all the little moments where you chose not to speak, hoping instead to be noticed. That silence is what chips away at intimacy the most. Many of us grew up in environments where direct communication wasn't modeled or welcomed. Maybe we were taught to suppress our needs. Maybe we learned that speaking up would lead to conflict or rejection. So we carried those patterns into our relationships. We expect our partner to decode us, to read between the lines, to interpret our sighs and our moods. But healthy love doesn't work like that. Real connection comes from clarity, not guesswork. When you don't express your needs, they don't disappear, they just go unmet. And over time, that creates a subtle but growing distance. You might still be sleeping in the same bed, sharing meals, raising kids, but emotionally, you're miles apart. Because you're living in a relationship where your inner world is never truly revealed. And the irony is, the longer you expect your partner to just know, the more disconnected you feel when they don't. Speaking your needs isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of self-awareness. It's a gift you give to both yourself and your partner. It says, I want to be understood, so I'm going to help you understand me. That's intimacy. That's partnership. That's what makes love sustainable. And yes, it takes courage. It's vulnerable. It might feel awkward or scary, but it's the kind of courage that strengthens the foundation of your relationship rather than shaking it with silent expectations. A loving partner wants to meet your needs, but they can't meet the ones you never name. And love, no matter how deep, doesn't come with psychic abilities. So stop waiting to be guessed. Start choosing to be known, because the more clearly you speak, the more deeply you're understood. And in that understanding, real connection begins. Routine without vulnerability turns intimacy into a transaction. It's easy to fall into predictable patterns in a relationship, especially when life gets busy. You go to work, take care of responsibilities, maybe have dinner together, watch a show, and go to bed. Even physical intimacy can become part of that cycle, something that happens not because of deep connection, but because it's what couples are supposed to do. When this happens without real emotional openness, without shared inner worlds, without letting each other truly in, sex and connection start to feel like items on a checklist rather than experiences that deepen love. Routine, by itself, is not the problem. In fact, some degree of routine brings stability. It gives a relationship rhythm and safety. But when routine becomes hollow, when you keep doing the things without putting your full self into them, intimacy turns mechanical. It starts to feel like maintenance instead of meaning. You go through the motions, say the right words, touch at the right times, but something is missing. That something is vulnerability. Vulnerability is what breathes life into routine. It's what keeps even familiar moments feeling alive. Without it, you stop being emotionally naked with each other. You hide your disappointments, your longings, your fears. You stop sharing the things you're ashamed of, the things you don't fully understand in yourself. You present the version of you that fits the routine, not the one that's real. And when your partner can't see the real you, when they're only interacting with your habits and roles, then connection becomes surface level. It becomes transactional. Intimacy isn't about just being physically close. It's about being emotionally open. It's about choosing to reveal what's uncomfortable, not just what's convenient. It's saying, here's what I need, here's where I'm hurting, or here's something I haven't been able to say. That kind of sharing keeps love alive. It creates moments of real contact. And those moments don't have to be dramatic or perfectly timed. They just have to be honest. Without vulnerability, routine can even become a way to avoid deeper connection. You convince yourself everything is fine because the schedule is intact. The chores are done. You still have sex. You still say, I love you. But under the surface, you might feel lonely. You might feel misunderstood. You might feel emotionally starved. And if you're not speaking those truths, then routine isn't holding your relationship together. It's quietly pulling it apart. The danger is transactional intimacy can look healthy from the outside. You function well as a couple. You don't fight much. But something vital is missing. You start to feel like roommates, business partners, or co-parents more than lovers. You perform closeness, but you don't always feel it. That emptiness often leads people to withdraw emotionally or physically, or to look elsewhere for connection, not necessarily in betrayal, but in overworking, overcommitting, or retreating inward. To break that cycle, you don't need a grand gesture. You need presence. You need the willingness to go beneath the surface. Ask each other deeper questions. Tell the truth even when it's messy. Show your partner parts of you you've been hiding. That level of emotional risk is what creates intimacy, even in the midst of routine. Because real intimacy isn't sustained by what you do. It's sustained by who you're willing to be with each other. And when you bring vulnerability into even the smallest routines, the ordinary becomes sacred again. The kiss before bed means more. The morning coffee feels warmer. The sex feels like a connection, not a duty. That's when routine stops being a transaction and starts being a vessel for love.